Macromolecules. Macromolecules are the essential things that you need in life, and there are four different kinds: carbohydrates, lipids, proteins, and nucleic acids. Each of these are all different combinations of polymers, which are which break down into monomers, which kind, of course, as I mentioned, is carbohydrates, which include sugars and the polymers of sugars. The simplest kind of carbohydrate is monosaccharides, which are single sugars, but they can form together to make disaccharides or polysaccharides as well, which monosaccharides all have molecular formulas that include some form of CH2O, and the most common is glucose, which is an energy source for many different forms of life. Then there's disaccharides. They form when a dehydration reaction happens between two monosaccharides. And the most common examples are table sugar and lactose, which is a component of milk. So these, of course, being as it's sugar, is also a energy source as well. Then there are polysaccharides, which are long chains of carbohydrate molecules, and they mostly help and serve plants because they help strengthen plant walls as well as fungal exoskeletons and cell walls. Cellulose is an example of a polysaccharide, and what it does is it is part of the cell. It's part of the cell wall structure for most plants. Then there are lipids, which are hydrophobic macromolecules, and they don't form polymers. The most common biological lipids are fats, phospholipids, and steroids. And one common example of the fats that you find are saturated and unsaturated fats. And saturated fats are solid at room temperature and have the maximum number of hydrogen atoms, and they cannot double bond, while unsaturated fats have at least one double bond between some of the carbon atoms in the chain, and it is commonly liquid at room temperature. Then there are phospholipids, which help bring structure and make the cell membrane functional, which means that other products such as food or waste can enter and exit a cell. Then there are steroids, which a common example found in food is cholesterol, which also helps with cell membranes, but while they are very necessary, too many of them can clog up arteries and blood vessels, causing a higher risk of a heart attack or other heart-related problem. Then there are proteins, which serve a multitude of functions, including catalyzing chemical reactions, providing support, storing amino acids, and even more. And it's so common within your body that it makes up about 15% of it. As previously mentioned, they store amino acids, which are acids that are formed up of carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, hydrogen, and occasionally sulfur atoms with a carbon atom at the center of it, and they can form many different groups of acid structures, including the amino groups, carboxyl groups and the variable groups. Now, proteins have very unique structures, starting with the primary structure, which is a long chain of different atoms bonded together, which then take on helix or pleated structures, and then after that, in the tertiary stage, it's a combination which becomes globular, and quaternary, which is a combination of multiple proteins together. And finally, there are nucleic acids, which contain DNA and RNA, which help guide cells and help create new cells. And they're made up of smaller units called nucleotides. These are often made up of carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, phosphorus, and hydrogen atoms.